Welcome back to A Fresh Story, the podcast where we have conversations about brave decisions to start over again. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Olivia, and we're so glad you're here today. Okay, we are back with our friend L'Oreal, and we're so excited to have you here. She is an author, she's a speaker, she's a writer, she's a mother, she's all the things, and we're just thrilled to catch you in your busyness just to have a conversation. So I would love if you could just start out by, you have this amazing book, which you were all over the press for, and I would love if you could just, last time you were here, Jenny was not here. So Jenny's coming in as a clean blank slate here. So
listen to the episode, but yes, let's pretend I'm coming. Yeah.
We'll pretend. Yeah. If you want to just talk for a second about what the book is about, just for anybody new that's listening, and then I want to dig into kind of that topic that the book is about.
Yeah. So Stop Waiting for Perfect is my love letter to every aspiring, recovering perfectionist, every highly ambitious individual like myself, for the high achievers that are out there, and just kind of this permission slip to stop waiting, stop procrastinating, stop, holding on to, this perfect moment of when I, do X, then I'll go for the moon and like all of my big dreams and everything like that. It's like, you can get started. You can get started now. You can get started imperfectly and learn and pivot and grow as you go. But first you have to get started.
Yeah. And what I love about your book, because I know from when we chatted last time, and you can kind of like rehash a little bit of this, that book was a journey, right?
Yes.
It was like a real journey. So like, I would love if you could talk, we have a lot of people that listen that are writing a book. We're writing a book, and it's a process unlike anything that we've ever experienced. And so I'd love if you could just really take us down just like a very quick timeline, because I think it's a great example of like that stop waiting for perfect like ethos of like, you just put it out there, and the book that is in the world now is not the book that was.
It is not. It is completely different. I'm completely different. And what I love about us talking about this now in this moment of time, and I just referenced this in this week's newsletter about, denial is let me start over. That delay is not denial. And so Victoria Monet, 15 years in the industry, just won Best New Artist at the Grammys, right? And it's taken me 16 years to write my first cover story as a journalist, like kind of these parallels. And she's also a first-time mom. And I was just so happy seeing her, like kind of this career arc, because a few months ago at the MTV VMAs, they said that she was, quote, too early in her career, for that stage. And then fast forward to winning 3 Grammys in one night. And it's kind of like this big FU to MTV. Yeah. But I say that because the book, like Stop Waiting for Perfect, was also a multi-year endeavor. Like 2015 is when I had the first idea or iteration of this. And at that time, the working title was like The Millennial Manual to Life, Love, and Something Other Else. I don't know, very like woo-woo. Because that's where I was.
Very
in my life.
2015.
Very of that time, very girl boss era. And, talking about the side hustle and all of these different things. And I started the Google Doc. There's the outline. And the last time I touched it was October 2015. I just kind of left it there, procrastinated. What I know now was like waiting for this perfect proposal to put together to get the agent and get the book deal and do all the things. Yeah. And I sort of abandoned this project because of imposter syndrome. Like I didn't think that I was qualified or that I knew enough or that I was good enough to write a book. Like who am I, small town girl from Maryland, like to write a book? And then fast forward to 2017. And I remember distinctly for my 30th birthday, I purchased for myself Jen Sincero's book proposal course, like her nonfiction book proposal course. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it, like hype myself up. By this time, the book had evolved into talking about imposter syndrome, which at that time, not a ton of people were talking about. Like it wasn't quite as trendy as it is now. And the working title changed to Trust Your Dopeness, based on this pep talk.
I still love that, by the way.
I do too. And the reason it changed, like if I had it my way, that would be the title. But there was a a major global conglomerate who owns the copyright to Trust Your Dopeness. So we had to change it because I don't have global conglomerate lawsuit money.
I love your title too. I love the title you ended up.
It's very much this evolution. So Trust Your Dopeness though, and it was very 2017. Like these titles are very much like
I love that.
of that time and place, and worked on the proposal in 2017 for a few months. It took a while, like almost a year, to get to the point where I was like, okay, now I feel comfortable querying in different agents and starting to pitch this book. And I was immediately faced with numerous rejections. Like I remember distinctly, there was an agent who was like, I love this idea. I love this concept, this title, your voice, like this is great. Come back to me when you have 20,000 social media followers. And I was like, okay, well, at the time, I think I had maybe somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 across all platforms. So it was very discouraging because with nonfiction in particular, if you're not a celebrity, an influencer, a politician, or, Prince Harry, it's hard to sell a book. They really look at it as a business and take a certain percentage of your followers are actually going to convert into readers and buy the book. And so, and then I had a couple of different agents along the way. And I think that's important to talk about in publishing, traditional publishing as well, about sometimes you need to fire your agent, right? Like it's not a good match. And what that really pushed me to do was believe in myself harder, right? Because I think I was so desperate, honestly, to have an agent. So that first time, the first two times someone said yes, I was like, oh, absolutely, this is amazing. And you try to make fetch happen, even though I knew in my gut. Listen, I love a good pop culture reference.
Yeah, you are. You're the queen of that. I just want to pause for a second. We have an agent, and it kind of fell into our laps, and so we were like, great, this is cool. But the bravery of having to then make a decision to pivot agents is huge. And I want to recognize that because it's so hard to get an agent, for a nonfiction book, that then to say, this isn't working for me, where did that gumption come from? Because that, I don't think I could have done that. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. It was really, really, really hard. A lot of meditating and journaling, honestly, getting quiet, getting clear with myself, and just the belief that I deserve more and I deserve better. And the faith that it is going to work out. I need to find the right match. And it's more important for me to get it right than to get it fast. And that's always been kind of my motto as a journalist, even. And then we see, especially nowadays with media, it's a hot mess. There's fake news, all these different things. And I remember even distinctly when there was that basketball controversy, and I was still at Jet at the time, and there was this release about something, and everyone was like, oh, we got to cover it now. And I was like, let's pause, time out. Let's get our facts straight, which is this novel concept now in media. But I took that kind of motto of okay, get it right instead of getting it fast, and had faith that someone else will come along. The right agent will come along who believes in me and the book, and also my career, because I want to make a career out of this. This is not just a one-time thing and then that's it. And so really taking that bet on myself, but also I Googled the hell out of how to fire your agent. I read a lot of books, and actually the YouTube video from my current agent about breaking up with your agent, I used, and of course the group chat, shout out to the group chats who read your emails and copy edit everything to make sure, you strike your right tone and everything. But ultimately it came down to this faith in myself and my book, and this belief that the right opportunity will come along. And then it did. Literally a few months after that, my current agent, who actually was one of the ones who rejected me the first round that I was pitching, slid into my DMs. And I'm very much mindful of the time that this was all happening. So it was around summer, fall 2020, this whole, quote, racial reckoning in publishing and around the world. And so I think there was also this, meeting of the moment of there's a lot of this hard work that I've done, and I put a lot of effort into this proposal, and the industry was also hungry for at that time, diverse voices. And so it was, I don't want to seem opportunistic because I know that I have the talent and the skill that got me there. And there was also this moment of time that kind of created the perfect circumstances in order for me to step into that.
Right. I mean, that's not opportunistic. That's they're failing for years and years and years and years. And then finally they were kind of caught.
They caught up.
And they caught, and so they had to catch up.
Exactly.
And so that's not you being opportunistic. That's minorities finally getting the due that they are deserved because you've worked so hard to be here and you've done all the work and have the proposal and the book ready. And that you didn't move from that scarcity mindset and you moved from a place of abundance of like, I will find the thing that is meant for me. I just think that's that lesson can be extrapolated across many different relationships.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think too, so I love that you talk about this and we look up to you so much. We truly do because, there's no, when you're existing, like I love you said you're just like a girl from Maryland, right? We're just two girls from Long Island, right? So we're like, when you're existing in this space, you're like, I have these huge ambitions, but I'm just this girl from X, right? You don't have a model to be like, hey, do you like Beyonce? You are a superstar. Can I be like you? It's like, we don't have that. And so I feel like it's like our duty to talk about this.
We don't have that. We don't have those kind of parents.
Right. No, we don't. And so I think it's so important. Like you didn't have a model that you could be like, how do I do this? How do I write a book? How do I do? And now you get to be that for other people. And I think that's like so beautiful in the way that you talk about your process and how it was not easy, right? None of this was easy, but the faith that you have in yourself is so like, it could like make me cry. Like, it's so powerful that you just believed in yourself this entire time. So what was it like when you finally kind of like gave up the perfectionism and then released a book about giving up perfectionism?
And it's because that wasn't what the book was supposed to be about. Like it started off about imposter syndrome. And I feel like that became very trendy. And I was like, I don't know if that's it anymore. And then when we had to change the title, that was a major disappointment, but something that I knew was possible just because of, the way that publishing works. And it was interesting in our brainstorm for the new title, we literally had like a Google Doc of about 30 different titles. And I was referencing a newsletter that I wrote about writing the book. So very meta, like all of my writing is connected in like the LT in the City universe. But there was this tweet that I saw when I was working on the first draft and it said, you can edit bad, but you can't edit nothing. And I was like, a light bulb literally went off in my head that I was just like, okay, so this is it. I'm trying to put forth this perfect first draft, which those three words don't go together and they're not meant to go together. Like that's just not how writing works. And I think because this was my first book deal, I didn't want them to think that they had made a mistake, right? And I also wanted to make sure that I did a good job because I need to also, kind of like pave the way for all the other Black girls who come after me and everything. So there's that other pressure and was trying to, I want to turn in this flawless manuscript. So my editor thinks that I'm perfect. And I was like, oh, that is not your job. Your job is to put words on a page. Her job is to make them sound good. You're not getting paid to do her job. Right. So focus on the task at hand. And as we were talking, I was telling them that story. And then the newsletter that I wrote about it, I was like, you have to stop waiting for perfect. And I was just rambling kind of like I am now. And I saw them look at each other and they were like, I think that might be it, that there's something there. And I love that it is this call to action and kind of more evergreen because, again, talked about imposter syndrome comes and goes. There's this like trendiness around it, some controversy too. I was talking in another conversation the other day, how, everyone's saying like, stop telling women they have imposter syndrome, which agree. And I know that for me, it is still very much real. Like that is something that I have experienced in my life, in my work life, in my personal life. And it is also compounded by racism, sexism, and everything, the argument that people are making for why imposter syndrome doesn't exist. I'm like, it's a both and for me personally. And I think a lot of other people as well, it's not as like clear cut. And so what I found though, in writing the second draft especially was like, it's imposter syndrome, it's self-doubt, it's perfectionism. It's like all, and they're all related, right? Like they're all first cousins on this family tree. And they, you know, can really work against us and hold us back from, because even now, like the published book it's not perfect. As I was reading, like I narrate the audiobook, and as I'm reading, it was like, oh, I want to change this, I want to change that. But it's better for it to exist imperfectly than it to still be sitting in my Google Docs, like that first iteration from 2015. Right. So that was kind of the journey.
But you did it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you did it and you got it out there, and it serves people so much more at 99.9% perfect.
Yes.
Or as close to perfect as anything is ever going to get than it does in that Google document. Right. Where it's not helping anyone and it's only making you feel bad.
What has been like, have you heard stories from people that have read it that have like used the methodologies and kind of, you know, stuff that you lay out in the book?
Yeah, one of my favorite romance authors, actually, Talia Hibbert in the UK. So I like fangirl over her, love her book, the Brown Sisters trilogy, especially amazing. And I was just randomly on Instagram one day, and she was like, yeah, I'm listening to the audiobook, and I posted this screenshot, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? And listened to it twice. Like she was like, as soon as I finished, I listened to it again. And then she wrote about it in her newsletter and made a reminder for her phone about like progress is better than perfection based off of my book. And it was just kind of like, what do you mean? Like, I look up to you. You're a multi-book, like many books to her name. And those are the notes that always keep me going. And I found from another friend shared a screenshot from one of her followers because she had recommended it. And she was like, I feel like L'Oreal was like looking at my window and looking at my life. Like, how does she know? And I'm grateful for those messages because they always inevitably come when I'm having a low point, right? When I see other authors, peers, people who came out around the same time, you know, they're on this list, they got this review, other friends who are New York Times bestsellers and other one who's at 6-figure book deals. And I compare myself because I'm human. And then I feel jealous because I'm a Scorpio. And then I get these messages and these little signs from the universe that are like, okay, remind me of why I wrote the book and the impact that it has, especially when it's other Black women and girls, because that was the whole point. Like, yes, anyone who identifies as a perfectionist can relate to it. Anyone who's ever felt self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And I know for me, based on my own experience, that feeling is heightened for Black women and girls in this country. And so when I did book events, and there was twice actually, New York and Chicago, there were these Black moms who brought their daughters, and they were also like, I'm getting this copy for my mom and my auntie. And so the fact that it can have this generational impact, I try to ground myself and practice my own advice in the book, right? Like the feel goods folder and keeping those messages and revisiting them in those low moments to keep me going. Because I mean, the awards and the accolades would be nice. Don't get me wrong. I still like aspire to those things. And what's more meaningful or significant, what's going to be part of my legacy after I'm long gone, is the impact that it's had on other people, inspiring them to accomplish their dreams and goals. I don't know if you follow Catherine Morgan on Twitter as well. I forget her Twitter name. But started Grand Gesture Books, the romance bookstore. And she said that my book inspired her to do that. Like, what?
Love her.
So that's,
and I think I love that. And I think we don't talk enough, and I think this is why your book is so important, that perfectionism is the thief of joy.
Yes.
Right? Because, you know, we, especially like you said, like as women or, you know, Black women, you know, generally women, right? We're told like you have to be perfect in our body, in our mind, in our sexuality, in everything we do, or you can't exist in this world. So what have you seen kind of like because of the book as releasing either yourself or people around you to kind of live their best lives? I mean, Catherine's a great example, but like, you know, of this idea of like, you can just be a person. Like, you don't have to be this like perfect being that's like walking, you know, in high heels across the universe. So have you seen people talk about that with your book and kind of releasing that joy for them?
Oh, yeah. And it's been really inspiring, even in my own life, because I think especially becoming a mom and now having this little person who looks up to me and literally like everything I do, like she mimics. We were doing yoga the other day and she wanted to do yoga. I rolled up my sleeves and she had to roll up her sleeves. And so knowing that she's watching and this is an opportunity for me to break that generational cycle of perfection, right? Because I saw my mom and how hard she worked and how she never really like rested or prioritized wellness, right? In that way, and her mental health. I know that I want to do things differently. I want things to be different for Violet. So I have to do that. Like my therapist challenges me with that all the time. She's like, whenever you're in a situation and you think to yourself, what would you want Violet to do? You have to do that. You have to show her, you have to teach her. And because there's been this centuries long motto and method for Black women of working twice as hard to get half as much, I'm doing my best to reject that and show her a softer way of being, how you don't have to push through. And the most vivid kind of example of this, and I can't remember if I shared this on the last episode, so if so, feel free to edit.
We always love to hear
it. We were hiking in Hawaii, Diamond Head. I've done it before and no problem, but much different with a 27-pound toddler strapped to your back. So, you know, we're going. I can see the top. We're at the next to last summit. The end is in sight. And I couldn't do it. I was tired, and all my life has been like push through. And what I'm recognizing is that message of pushing through is actually an invitation to press pause, to like sit down, to be still. And so turned around, went back to where the rest of my family was sitting, handed the baby off to my sister, caught my breath, drank some water. And I turned to her and I was like, Mommy's really tired right now. And it's important that we listen to and honor our body and our boundaries. Now, mind you, she had just turned 1, so she's just looking at me like, all right, cool, but like, where's my apple pouch? But I was just like, it was important for me to model that self-care and choosing yourself and putting your needs, you know, above the goal even, right? Like that is important. And so I said on LinkedIn the other day, it's like if 2021, 2022, 2023, like that time period was like writing and revising and promoting the book, I feel like 2024 is the year where I'm really living it and sort of taking my own advice, because it's very easy, I think, especially as a self-help author, to be like, yeah, here's some tips and tricks and do all these things. And then I don't do them. I don't do it myself. So I've been giving myself permission to experiment. Like I recently launched merchandise to complement the book. And I had the idea since last year, even before it came out, but I never took action because it wasn't perfect. And I launched with a mug and a tote. And then everyone on Facebook was like, where are the t-shirts? And I was like, I didn't think y'all would want t-shirts. So I gave myself permission to experiment. Let's start with, you know, these 2 things. And if we need to make it bigger, then we can, but I just have to get started and then get the feedback in order to realize, you know, what it is that people want. So just giving as a perfectionist, it's really hard to experiment. So reframing it in that way of like, okay, this isn't, you know, like this big launch, and I'm experimenting and I'm going to see what happens, and I'm going to pivot if I need to.
I love that. So let's pivot for a second into talking about your journey into motherhood, because that was definitely an experience of not perfectionism. And so if you wouldn't mind just like, again, like giving us a quick overview of that and how you had to pivot and experiment there too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my whole life I've had the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan, et cetera, like always been a planner. And this is definitely something that did not go according to plan. Right? We got married when I was 27. So I was like, okay, when I turn 30, we'll start trying. But then as I got closer, I panicked, honestly, because I was like, I'm not where I want to be career-wise. And I know that I need to make more money. So I have money while I'm on leave. I have a job that even has leave at the time because I was working for a nonprofit for girls, interestingly enough, that did not have paid parental leave, but that's a whole nother.
Of course.
It's always that way.
I have so many thoughts and issues with that. And so it was just like, I want to wait until I'm at a level in my career where I feel like I can take that time away. And sure enough, then as we started trying, it took a while. It was like 6 months into the process. And I knew then, I was like, something's not right. Like something is off here. And I know they usually recommend a year before going to see a specialist, but it's like, I know my body. I have dealt with fibroids before. I had surgery to remove like almost 20 fibroids. So I was just like, something's not right. We need to get this checked out. We both got tested, and it turned out that my fallopian tubes were blocked from scar tissue from the surgery to remove the fibroids. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And from there, the doctor, I mean, very casually, it's just like, yeah, so IVF is going to be your best chance of, getting pregnant, and basically like, good luck. And I was like, sorry, what? Like that wasn't part of the plan or the budget.
Yeah.
Right. Because at that time, like I didn't know anyone else who had done IVF personally. Of course, you read about celebrities, but also like they have money, right? Like Chrissy Teigen was, I think, the only person I knew at the time, and then not know personally, but that I had
one day.
Right about, exactly
about
right,
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Michelle Obama and her memoir. But again, like people who have access to greater resources.
Right.
And so I was just like, we didn't plan for this. We didn't budget for this. I don't know how this is going to work or how it's going to happen. And at that same time, was feeling compelled to kind of document this and write about it, because I was looking for where are the stories from the young Black women. Because I think also when we hear infertility, we think, 40 plus, and also just any like Google search and support groups that I was looking at, even the clinics where we were, it was all very white, like very much the only Black couple in there. You don't see the Black babies on the little success board. So it's like, where do I fit in here? It takes what's already this very isolating experience and makes it even more isolating when you look around and you don't see or can identify with anyone who looks like you. And we actually end up changing clinics. So speaking of firing literary agents and then firing your fertility doctor, because I just didn't get a good vibe. I'm very big on vibes. And I had been talking at the wing, RIP, with a friend. And then someone who worked at a different fertility clinic overheard me and was like, hey, would you want to come check us out? I can put you in touch with the doctors there. And I was just like, I don't know, like, are you even allowed to change? Is that something that, because we just went with the doctor that my surgeon had recommended. And when we went to the new clinic, our doctor, and I love her. She's like an Indian Barbie. She's amazing. She's gorgeous and ridiculously smart. Obviously, she's a doctor, but more so just like kind and empathetic. Like our consultation was after, this is pre-pandemic. So we had been commuting and the city traffic was ridiculous. We get there, I'm hungry, borderline hangry, because it's like there's snacks. Like they thought about that. She's like, here, take my number. If you ever need anything, text, call, or FaceTime me. And we took her up on that. Like, I forget which of the cycles that we had. We ran out of some medicine. A lot of IVF is very timed and, precise. And she was like, hey, my husband's not home, but I have the kids. If you want to come here, I'll give you some extra that she had on hand, and was just like the kindest person. And also just very like from a cultural perspective, she got it as well, because similarly, like Indian and Black communities, like we don't talk about these sort of things. We don't talk openly about that. And so it was really reaffirming.
I'm curious if after your experience, after you started talking about it, if other people you knew came out of the woodwork and share, because I think that it's changing a little bit now, but IVF has been, somebody just has twins, and they're like, I don't know how that happened.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
that's okay. And so I wonder if that gave people a safe place to talk to you about it. Yeah.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. And I had asked my husband before I started writing about it, because, before and everything I wrote, that it was just me. It just impacted me. It was about my life or my body. And I was like, this involves both of us. And he was like, I feel like you kind of have to, and not in the sense that like we're obligated to share our stories or journeys, but also like I am a writer. I have but I have a platform.
Yeah.
And so that there's this, for me at least, kind of, it's twofold. It's cathartic in the sense of being able to write and process. And that's always how I've been as a journalist, as a writer. I literally journal, and then I'll, kind of get the thoughts out and eventually write about them more publicly. And in doing that, absolutely. I mean, the story that I get the most DMs about to this day is a self-story article that I wrote about, 8 lessons I learned after 4 failed IVF cycles. Yeah. And I imagine the trajectory that leads people to that story. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're Googling failed IVF cycle, because that's something I didn't know could happen as well, right? You think I followed the rules. I did the things in the protocol. I'm supposed to be guaranteed this outcome, but that's not how it works. And there was actually a Chrissy Teigen article where she talked about their first one didn't work either, that I was like, oh, okay, this is normal. Why aren't we talking about it? Like, why do we make it seem like so seamless or flawless that like the first round is going to work? But yeah, I imagine people find that story, then they Google me, they find my Instagram, they see my daughter, and then they message me and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, like, for sharing. This is giving me hope. I'm so happy that it worked out. And those messages really mean a lot to me, because I very much am about be the change you want to see, write the story that doesn't exist. So those are the things that I wish that I had, and knowing that it's giving someone else some hope to keep going really is just like, that makes it all worth it to me.
Yeah, all of it. Totally. Yeah. I hope that you're maybe writing a book about that, because I feel like it needs to be out there.
Well, I'm working on the proposal. Okay. And so hopefully,
because that's like a bigger story, right? That's like a much bigger story about bodies and Black women and infertility and motherhood, right? So,
and perfectionism. I just briefly, like, I moved to Scotland in May, and like every time something comes up, like somebody was like, what are your tax implications there? And I was like, I don't know. And I am a bad person because I don't know I should have thought to ask that question, and I was talking with a friend who also moved to the UK, and I said something about, double taxes and trying to avoid them. And she goes, what? You have to pay double taxes? And I was like, oh, it's not just me, obviously nobody knows. But this idea that like, you should have known.
Oh my gosh.
And I should know all the answers before I even know what the questions are. And it's the perfectionism of that. That must have been a very triggering, but also very healing in a way. I mean, leading into parenthood, which is all perfectionism is blown up.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. How has being a writer about not being perfect affected your parenting? Because parenting is a shit show as is.
I remember vividly the first mid-afternoon call of, hey, she has a fever, you need to come pick her up. And I was like, panicked in the middle of work. Like, what do? I should have known. Right.
Right. Yep.
And my therapist was like, how would you know?
Yeah.
How would you know?
No.
Are you a psychic?
Yeah.
Are you a doctor?
Yeah. No. Right.
And so parenting has really forced, because there is, and especially, I mean, I struggled with, even before postpartum depression, like a lot of PTSD, perinatal depression and anxiety, because it took so long to get pregnant. Yeah. I didn't trust my body that it was actually going to carry to term, that it was going to work out, that we would have this. I spent like the first 2 trimesters just in this panic and not even like really celebrating or acknowledging, right? That this thing was happening.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah. And then,
are you a yoga teacher? Did I see that?
Yes.
So you are very connected to your body. So this must have been very alarming to your system.
Oh yeah. It's just panic. We can't, because I mean, from the time that I was 16 and started on birth control, right? Because I had super heavy periods, and now I know that it was fibroids, but also my mom and my aunt, and you have this family history of fibroids, and getting a doctor to believe that I had fibroids, right? It took like 3 years and multiple years to even get that diagnosis, because doctors don't believe Black women's pain, and the fact that, the infertility was a result of the surgery to remove these. And it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the mental health side of it, and the postpartum depression and anxiety, and feeling like I have to be a perfect mom. I should know the answers. I can't ask for help. Like, literally, that was the article when I said I had to turn in an assignment right before this call. And that's what I'm doing kind of now in writing for Respectful. I wrote a story about how to ask for help as a new mom.
Yeah. Yep.
Because there was this, for me, just like, well, I can't ask for help, because then that's a sign of weakness, and that means I'm not competent. That means I'm a bad mom. And we go down that spiral and that shame. And it's just like, no one's expecting you to have it all together. No one does. Anyone who says they are lying, or they have a lot of help. So just trying to be as honest and vulnerable and give then other moms permission to show up authentically and vulnerably and not feeling this need to be perfect. And I end up switching therapists also because the one that I had been working with for a while, and I loved her, but it was just like, I recognized, and it was one of those like 3 a.m. tear fest, just kind of like breakdown in the just overwhelm of it all. And it was like, I need something different. I need a therapist who specializes in postpartum depression and anxiety. But at that point, it was a year after Violet was born, and I thought I should, quote, be over it. Postpartum is forever. It doesn't have an expiration date. And started working with this therapist, have like made a lot of strides. Recently met with a psychiatrist, started taking antidepressants. And so it's like, because then, and I felt a little shame about that as well, because it's like, why can't I, quote, be a normal mom, right? Like, why don't I have my shit together? Why am I not good enough as I am? And it's like, going back to that, what I want Violet to do, I would want her to take care of herself. And my OBGYN knew, like when I came in for the 6-week follow-up appointment, I mean, I failed the test at the hospital and then at the follow-up for the screening for postpartum depression, but I thought I could like pull myself out of it. I can do all the therapy and the yoga and the meditation. And I was doing those things and it still wasn't enough. And I was like, now it's time to call in the reinforcements 2 years later, but you know, better late than never. But just, I wish that I had said yes that first time, and didn't feel like I was going to be a bad mom if I did that. Like now I recognize, you know, that would have been really helpful. And, but yeah, like I said, better late than never, but just trying to undo all of that, the messaging, you know, that we get from society about a good mom and bad mom looks like.
Yeah, I did that. I was similar. When my second son was born, I was really probably suffered from pretty bad postpartum. It wasn't until a year later that I sought out a psychiatrist and was put on anxiety medication. And I was like, oh my God, I felt like I'd been bleeding out, right, for like that whole year, like emotionally. And so, you know, I think, and I could talk about postpartum forever because I think everybody has it. We're not talking about it. And that's just another
changes your brain
conversation.
chemistry. I mean, we act like our brain is this thing that sits above our head and sort of exists apart from our biology, but it is a biological organ, and it has chemistry and it has hormones, and you know, pregnancy is not like a neutral experience. It affects you. Before we let you go, I'm going to ask you your favorite question, which is what do you love in pop culture right now? Because you're a pop culture girly, so I want to hear what's going on pop culture wise in your head.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought you were going to ask favorite Beyonce song, and I was like,
I'm also
I'll take that too.
I'll take that too.
Well, I mean, because it's hard and it's a bit of a cop out, but it's like I have a favorite album more than song.
Okay.
If I have to choose a song, my go-to is Level on Top because it's our wedding song.
I love
and right now, Dangerously in Love, the Renaissance live version is because tears, straight up tears. When she came on the screen, I went to the show, but then I also saw the documentary in the theater, and that close up and just the emotion and everything. Yeah. Just, but Four is my favorite album. But favorite pop culture moment right now, I mean, I gotta circle back to my girl Victoria Monet, which is also Beyonce related because she posted this picture the two of them took together at the Grammys, and just kind of how Beyonce was her model, her artist development. But I'm really in and of herself inspired by Victoria and the work that she's done to get where she is. And even like on My Mama, she talks about, you know, homage to her mom, how that helped her through postpartum, right? And it's just this living embodiment of manifestation, right? She said that she was practicing holding Grammys like this with, you know, 2 arms instead of just holding one. And it came true. So she, you know, is having a well-deserved moment, and also like this was years long in the making. So it gives me hope that, you know, my time is coming. There may be the MTV, you know, award shows that don't get it or think it's too early, or, you know, eventually the industry will catch up, or they won't. Like, I'm going to continue to do my own thing and continue to put out great work. And so she's been really inspiring to me to watch.
I love that. Do you have any pop culture predictions of things we should be like looking out for?
I mean, I just think, and this has been the Beehive has talked about for a while now, that Act 2 for Beyonce is definitely going to be country inspired. I mean, she had the hat on at the Grammys, and so I'm just
love it.
Patiently wait. It's hard being a Beyonce fan, like the anxiety that comes with like at any moment she could release the visuals, release the net, and so that just always kind of has my heart and like palpitations.
I love it
because you just never know. It could strike and you don't want to be left out, and it could happen in the middle of the night. It could happen in the middle of your lunch break. Like you never know. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love everything she does. Like the marketing. I mean, it's amazing to me. Just like
intentional. Yeah.
It's so intentional. Yeah. All of my favorite musicians are dead, so they're not going to release anything new. I'm pretty safe in any given. I can go to sleep. I can work. You
can sleep at night, right?
Yeah, I do. No, we love her. So where can people support you, and what's going on with, like, you know, how can people listen and follow and read and all the things with LT in the City?
Yeah, so you can find everything at ltinthecity.com. I have a weekly motivational newsletter and a podcast that's currently on hiatus, but we'll be back soon with season 2 that's going to talk about Black motherhood and Stop Waiting for Perfect. Both the book and audiobook, narrated by yours truly, is available wherever books are sold.
Good. It's so good. We appreciate you, and we're so proud of you, and we always love chatting with you. And you're always welcome to come back, and we're just so excited to see what you do next. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for all of the work that y'all, the divorce season especially, just y'all are doing the Lord's work. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's story. We're always here, and we're so proud of you. A Fresh Story is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the first and only platform for everything you need to begin again. You can read the show notes and learn more about today's episode at afreshstory.com.